Hello and welcome to HNB Conversations with Cosmo and Rivka.
That was like you were answering the phone.
Oh, that is.
Hello.
I heard a big bang outside and it startled me.
Yeah, no.
I was going to sound, as close to a normal person as I can, but can you hear that?
I can hear that.
It's like, oh, I don't know.
That's our neighbor working. He's got all kinds of scrap.
Well, he's got like refrigerators out there and some grills and he's got
Scrap.
Would you call that scrap?
Yeah, it looks like Sanford and Son in the backyard.
Well, no, there's no I don't see garbage. What I see is someone who sells parts.
Uh-huh.
And so he buys someone's broken refrigerator or whatever, and then he'll strip them and sell the parts.
Yes. Okay.
That's what I'm seeing when I see in the backyard.
Well, it feels like he runs it through like a grinder sometimes. Sometimes I hear a noise out there.
If there's excess metal or if he needs to cut into something, it's all metal back there.
I suppose. Well,
and I wonder if any of it's valuable.
I don't think so.
Well, where do you put metal? Couldn't you recycle metal? If you'd you can recycle batteries even.
Yeah, but that's I don't think that's anyway.
Valid?
Valuable.
Oh, I was like,
I don't think
valid.
that stuff would be valuable. Anyway.
Well, I don't know. What do we know? We don't know anything.
I don't know anything.
Nothing.
Not much.
At all. Okay.
So, hey, everybody. How you doing?
I am tired. I'm always tired, but it was a very long holiday season for me. I feel like I was just on my feet or wrapping, or you were wrapping and I was cooking, and it was just a lot. We had lots of people. Normally in the past we've had Christmas Eve with family, and then we just would have Christmas Day pretty much just ourselves,
Yeah.
But not this year.
No, not this year. Had more family around.
Yeah.
So that was nice.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you're going to talk to us about how to ask for the bathroom somewhere.
All right. So if you're going to Turkey, which I've had friends go there for their honeymoon, I would never have thought of that as a honeymoon destination, but apparently it's very beautiful there.
Yeah.
But if you needed to know where the restroom was, oh my goodness, it just escaped my brain.
That's why I kept saying it beforehand, because it was a complicated one.
Okay. It starts with where's my phone? All right. So it's
like kivide nedide.
It's tuleve nedide.
Tuleve nedide.
But they say it really fast. Tuleve nedide. No.
Tuleve nedide.
Tuleve nedide. What? Good grief. Tuleve nedide.
Tuleve nedide.
Yeah.
Where's the bathroom?
Where's the bathroom? In case anyone ever needs to find one. And you're going to come across one of two toilets. You're going to come across the European style toilet, which apparently, I think it's not a duvet. I think it's what's that?
That
the foot washing toilet.
Yeah,
the foot washing toilet that we joke about. It's the bidet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's wrong with my brain. So it's kind of like a bidet, but it has a toilet seat. But you don't have toilet paper. They give you a hose, apparently. That's what it said, like a tube or a hose. And I'm like,
all right,
okay. So you get a tube or a hose that's connected, and that's what you use to, I guess, clean yourself. I don't know. You air dry? I don't know. But then, but the other kind of Turkish toilet that you can come across is, there are several different words for it, but one of them was called an elephant toilet, and I think that's because the feet on the side look so big, where you're supposed to put your feet, because it's basically a squatting toilet.
Oh.
I've actually been in bathrooms with squatting toilets.
Oh.
When I'm in the Middle East, and so it's porcelain, but it's in the ground, and it has a hole there. No, it's just an open, small toilet, but it's porcelain, and it's large enough for you to put your 2 feet on the side. There's a porcelain footprint, kind of
Okay.
and you put your feet there, and you squat.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. But there are usually toilet paper rolls on the floor there for you to use.
Oh man, that just doesn't sound.
It's all about what you're used to,
Yeah, no, I feel
we're used to what we have. We're very comfortable.
I feel very non-cross-cultural as you describe that.
It's hard to feel
oh wow.
I think everybody that
would be
comes
problematic.
Yeah, I think people that don't want that to become problematic, like they're adamantly opposed to that, don't stay in the States for too long because most of us get used to the comfortable lifestyle here
Yeah.
and go, oh, that's so hard. Like
Yeah.
when people would say, you think you'll ever move back to Israel? And I would go, the thing is, like, I really love like Walmart and going to get my hair cut easily and not that it has to be Walmart, but like everything here is so easy. And now I mean, I can we have our internet, you can work from home, you can do school from home, you can grocery shop from home. We can have all our groceries delivered like within an hour. Did you know that that was the original way that groceries were done? That when they had first started doing like food orders, like people would order their food, they'd place their orders, and it would be delivered to their doors. Just like
Now, when you say original, what
when they
time
first
period
started,
are you talking about?
I'm talking about like when I believe so there weren't always grocery stores. It was in the beginning of the 20th century. There were no grocery stores. There were like booths, right? Or a little market or
But like
whatever.
a general,
So
like,
you could place your order, like you would give them, go to the meat guy and give them your order or whatever. Some people went, that's true, but not everybody could go. So I read that food was delivered like that. And then they opened grocery stores and they were like, hey, you can actually come and you can look and see what you want. It was like this privilege thing where you could go and you could look and you could pick out whatever you wanted. And then that was what you paid
well,
for.
if you think about like Tevye the dairyman,
Right.
that he
They delivered
the
cheese and the milk
and he walked around, carrying
Yeah.
his cart.
Mm-hmm. Right, that's what I
delivering
mean.
that.
Like things were delivered to you,
Well,
fruits
when
and
I was a little
vegetables.
kid, there was still
Milkmen.
in Connecticut. There was still milkmen.
Right, and the reason that there were milkmen is because not everybody had refrigerators,
Well,
and milk needs to be but still you could order then. But that's why milk was delivered because they didn't have refrigerators. Maybe they'd have a small little ice box,
Yeah.
but not. You'd be surprised when my grandparents. Like when I think not when my grandparents were born, I think when my dad was born in the 40s or whatever, or maybe before, a little bit before that, like there was a large percentage of the United States that didn't have electricity yet.
Sure.
So if you don't have electricity, you're certainly not going to be able to use a refrigerator.
Yeah.
So milk was delivered because it would be refrigerated.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I just don't. It doesn't explain to me why we had a milkman in late 70s in Connecticut.
Maybe-
it was a job, and
Yeah,
it just
maybe they
hadn't been
want-
phased out. Yet in
Honestly,
that
I
area.
think Papa said they have good milk.
Yeah, probably.
And so we'll
It's the
order
fresh milk.
It's the fresh milk. It's good.
Yeah,
milk.
I can imagine that.
And
That makes sense.
And so they were having it
Then
delivered.
there must have been a
but-
bunch of people that felt like that because they were still in business.
Well, enough people to stay in business, probably smaller and smaller, until they no longer exist.
Mm-hmm.
But the grocery person that buys my groceries and delivers it to the house exists.
Yeah. Gotta love Walmart delivery and Instacart.
Instacart, yeah.
Enjoy it. All right. Well, Antonio, do we have a question on the spinner wheel?
Well, I'll spin and we'll see.
All right.
All right. And the question is, what is one thing you will never do again?
I feel like we've answered this question.
We have not.
We've not answered this
I
question.
don't believe so.
Okay.
I usually delete
Or
the questions off of the...
I don't remember answering this question. What's one thing you'll never do again?
Yeah, what's one thing you'll never
But
do?
yeah, no, we did because I in the wrong way said I would never get married again.
I have no memory of that.
Don't you remember when we did that? And it was like I was like, no, that's not what I meant.
Question to have
Okay.
talked about in other circles. Maybe
Yeah.
we have, but let's talk about it from now in a fresh.
Let's talk about it. What would
Okay.
you never do
Never
again
get married
besides
again?
like she wouldn't get married again.
Marriage is hard and it's sacrificing and and trying to cooperate with somebody, and it's not easy. And so if our marriage, if you passed away or something, I don't think I would get married again. Not because this is bad, but my mom would always say people who have good marriages get remarried again. And good for them. I don't think I don't have a good marriage.
Right.
But I think because I got married young and I never had I don't know, just the freedom to say, I'm going to go do this or I'm going to go do that and not have to like, I guess it's being kind of selfish, but I just don't think I'd get married again.
Yeah, I would never bungee jump again. That's what I would never do again because I didn't really want to do it the first time. I was in college. I think I was 19 or 20. And we were at there's a place in Florida called Old Town. And I think it was near Orlando and Kissimmee. And that night was college night. So they were giving a discount that you could do bungee jumping. It was an 8-story bungee jump.
That's insane.
That you could do for $10.
Oh my goodness.
And I wasn't going to spend $10 to
I could never do it. I could never ever
and
jump.
so my
I can hardly jump off the diving board.
So my friends were a bunch of them were going to do it, and I was like, no thanks, I'm good. And then one of them, I can't resist a good deal. He was like, I'll pay for it if you'll do it. One of my friends, and I was like, well, I would never pay to do this, but if someone else is going to pay for it, maybe I'll do that. Okay, sure. So, so as we were getting up there, the higher we got, because there was a line of people, I was regretting my decision, and it was it's kind of insane, right? I mean, you're strapped to this rubber band basically, and it's bigger than a rubber band, obviously. You're harnessed, and they've got the big, air pillow below you. And I actually hit the air pillow. You know what I mean? Which was fine, but it didn't hurt or anything. But it was just alarming. But stepping off the beam at 8 stories above the ground was terrifying. And yet, how everybody talks about like the rush or the thrill or whatever. I didn't feel that. I didn't feel like sometimes
it just felt wrong.
Yeah, sometimes people feel this sense of exhilaration.
I wonder if someone would feel that exhilaration because it's like you're breaking all the rules, because naturally we should never it's like trying to kill yourself. If you didn't have that band connected to you, that's what would happen. So maybe it's this exhilarating risking death but getting away with it.
Maybe I just don't have that gene, that desire. I don't have that thrill seeking, need that rush kind of thing in me. So when it was done, I was like, yeah, that was terrifying and not worth it, and I'll never do that again. And so, because I don't have to cheat death to realize
I
that
feel
I'm
that
not
way
in a
about
hurry.
roller coasters. So
well, I enjoy roller coasters,
right, but see, I have that feeling when I go on roller coasters, they're really scary for me, and I have a lot to live for, so I don't like that scary feeling. Some people do, though. Some people enjoy horror movies. Some people enjoy going into those scary houses. What is it? Not a ghost house. What?
Haunted
A
house?
haunted house.
Yeah, no, I've never liked any of that stuff. And I would never jump out of an airplane unless there was an airplane I was in that was crashing and I had a parachute. Then I would, because jumping out would be to save my life. But if I've got an airplane that has perfectly good landing gear and is going to land, I'm staying inside of it. I don't have to desire or to taste death.
Yeah.
To realize I don't want it. So that's something I've done that I would never do again.
I think that's reasonable.
It's less consequential, than it's not as significant and important
Is marriage.
Marriage for sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was just the first thing that popped. It's probably an easy answer because, I think that that's big. Like, there's lots of small things in your life that actually really, really make up your life. And so,
Right.
I mean, not that marriage doesn't.
Yeah, I remember like one time I was in Charleston, South Carolina, with a bunch of on a ministry team with a bunch of my friends, and we were in or was it Charleston? It doesn't matter. Savannah, Georgia, maybe. Anyway, we were in this coastal town, and I went to one of those hot sauce tasting booths where they had those hot sauces. And I would never do that again. I did that. I was 19.
Yeah.
And I or 20.
Yeah, no. We've done this question before because remember I said I'd never staple my finger again.
Did you?
That has to do with like what's the dumbest
Thing you've ever done.
No, I'm telling you.
Okay, well.
All right.
So,
but there's a lot of things.
Through the question.
Yeah. No, it just occurred to me. There's a lot. I feel like I'm having deja vu. Maybe we're just talking way too much about ourselves. There's a lot of, whatchamacallit. I have a lot of regrets. Like, I wouldn't do that over again. But I remember when I didn't in my life. We were living in the Victorian house, and all 4 kids were there. We had all 4 kids, and I was taking care of my grandmother. And I remember going into the family room, and she was sitting there, and she was crying. And I was like, Gami, what's wrong? Are you okay? What's the matter? And she was just looking off into the distance, and she began to like say how sad she was about the things she didn't get to do or that the people that she missed and stuff like that. And I remember thinking, I don't ever want to have any regrets.
yeah.
What year was that? Like how old was I?
Well, she died.
We'd been married 10 years.
She died in 2009.
Yeah. So
January.
we had been married 10 years and I was 33, I guess.
We'd been married 11 years.
11 years. Okay.
Yeah. So
I was 34 anyways. And I remember having that feeling. And so I know that like moving forward, I have regrets because I think I did things from being pressured or feeling an obligation that I really didn't need to feel obligated to. Like there was this idea of who I was supposed to.
People pleasing kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
people pleasing kind of stuff. I remember someone who recognized that in me and was like, just saw how much I was really killing myself. I was so tired. I was running so many things and all of that. And she said to me, which I understand now, but at the time it just kind of jolted me. Like, what's that supposed to mean? But she just said to me, Rivka, you're just not that important. And I was just like, okay, like whatever that means. But I understand it now because it means it's not like nobody else.
The world's not going to fall apart
if you don't do these things. And there are certainly other things you would rather do. You're doing everything you feel like you have to do. You're not doing the things that you would want to do or even feel like God would rather you do.
Right.
So I think that there are things like that I would, but I'm also saying that from this brain. Like that brain didn't have the experience that this brain had. So if I could go back and jump into my body and have this brain and go,
you'd say no to a lot more things because of how fast children grow up and get married and
like I could have.
And you go,
all I ever wanted to do my whole life was be with my kids and raise my kids. And when the Lord told me to homeschool, I wanted to homeschool my kids. That was my calling, my dream, all of that. But instead, I felt the pressures to be, the perfect pastor's wife, Rebbitzin, all of that. And and it's a lot of pressure. I mean, you go to pastor's wives conferences, they're putting pressure on you. If you have family that are in ministry, they're putting pressure on you. People that don't even know you but are in the congregation and have tons of expectations on you, they're putting pressure on you. So when you're young, you and not that like 35, 34 to whatever is so young, but it's younger than I am. So at that point in my life, I didn't, I guess, yet have the self-esteem or the awareness of the shortness of that time of life.
Sure. Sure.
So
all right.
Yeah. Tonio, we could go for another question.
All right, let me spin. as I just rotate.
It snowed today.
It did snow today. That is true.
It snowed. Dad came in to wake me up and he was like, "It's snowing." I was like, "What?"
Yeah, when I woke up, it wasn't snowing, and then I went to the bathroom, and then Dad called, and he was like, "You got to get over here. It's snowing, and you don't want the roads to be too slick." And we were very confused.
Yep.
All right.
I do not drive in the snow.
All right. What's one fear you want to master?
What's a fear you want to?
What's a fear you want to master?
What's one fear?
I don't know. I don't know that I live with the idea that there are fears that I need to master. To me, if there's something,
I have a fear. I mean, there are fears like fears of spiders
oh yeah,
but I would say if I had one fear I wanted to master, I have friends that I've watched over my lifetime, and they seem to not have the fear of rejection. Like they do what they're going to do, and if someone doesn't like it, well, too bad. This is the way it is. This is how
that's
I'm
back to
doing it.
that people pleasing thing,
Right? And I have a deep-rooted fear of rejection. It's I don't exactly know why, but I do. And so I'm usually I think I'm usually trying to be the best version of myself because I don't know. I think I'm afraid that if there's the real version of myself, and I mean, I'm pretty much myself, so I'm not even sure what that version is. I think it's just something I make up in my head. I think that I worry people will reject me or forget me, or like my first thought. Someone once said it's like trauma brain, I guess, but like my first thought, and I over talk myself. Like I'll say, if I naturally have these feelings, but then I say to myself, that's not true. This person's just busy. Don't worry about it. You're fine. Like I have to do that in my head, and I'm fine. But my first instinct is always to think that person's not calling me back or not texting me or not whatever, like is to go, I must not be important. They don't like me. They didn't really want to sit and be with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I know that's not true. I mean, I think it's not. I hope it's not.
Well, I guess the way I've always looked at it for a long time, I suppose, because I don't struggle to that degree with people pleasing.
No, for sure.
And I think for me, I know I've shared the story, this one before, but the first time I recall making this concerted decision was being 13 years old, sitting at the lunch table the first day of 8th grade. And when I really hadn't been walking with the Lord, but knew I should be, and I was trying to impress all my friends at school, and I sat there looking at the lunch table going, why am I focused on what these people think of me? Because the fact is, when we leave this place, they're not thinking about me. It's first day of school. Everyone's wearing their first day of school clothes, right? And I realize no one's looking at my first day of school clothes because they're all focused on their first day of school clothes. I've been living my life trying to make these people laugh or trying to make these people happy, and they don't actually care. And so I'm no longer going to try to hang out with the cool kids because of who it'll make. I'm going to spend time with people that I enjoy being with, and I'm going to hang out. And so I started hanging out with the kids that were in my classes that were even nerdier and whatever. And so I had that experience then. And then I think one of the other things that I don't know that as guys have to overcome to some degree is the fear of rejection.
Yeah.
Because anytime you would go to ask a girl on a date, to do that, or to you had to put yourself out there. And so what I had to mentally come to grips with was like through the process of what's the worst that can happen. The worst that can happen is she could say no. And will I fall apart? Will my life fall apart? Will I be any less of anything if she says no, she won't go out with me? No. So, and I learned by being told no, I survived that. I'm okay. And learned to like who I was for me. And if someone didn't like I don't
remember always feeling that way. I think that, I don't know if it's because we've been in ministry, you know what I mean? And it's not like you just have your set of friends and then you move and make another set of friends or whatever. ministry, in my experience, is filled with rejection. 'Cause just like people rejected Yeshua, so they would
Right.
reject us like over and over and over and over again. Not the same person, but just, and I think, I'm not a robot, and I think it did affect me, even if I knew, well, it's just the way it is. It still did affect me to the point where now maybe there's a part of me that's just like, what, I just don't want to go through that again. I'm just kind of over people dumping me, and I just would, I'll be everybody's friend, but it's really scary. And so, but I know that the people who are close to me in my life love me, and I'm actually a really, really low maintenance friend because I want so much grace. So I give a lot of grace, and I really am fine with it. But that's the first thought I do have those thoughts and those fears. And so if I could overcome like a fear, I think it would be that, because without the fear of rejection there, I think you can accomplish a lot,
Yeah, if I were to dig down to think about the question, what is it I'm afraid of? Because rejection's not the thing for me. The question of, and I don't know, this feels like therapy on a on a podcast, like the question of what I'm afraid of, because I don't feel like I live with a lot.
The question wasn't what you're afraid of. It's,
what's the fear you want to overcome? Well,
right.
I feel like most of my fears are rational fears that I have no desire to overcome, because I feel like they're good fears that are there for good reason.
Well, probably then
some of those fears.
Well, so what you're saying is there's nothing that. Okay, so I know about good fears. Yeah, I'm afraid to touch fire because it's going to burn. That's not what we're talking about. What you're saying is you don't have any like fears that you would want to overcome that are irrational or hold you back at all?
No, I was going to say, so the one fear probably, and I'd have to dig down to see.
I just think it's interesting. I think that's like everybody has these like crazy fears, and you don't feel like on one level, because like you're like, well, geez, like I don't know, because like
not anything that dominates the forefront of my thinking. There may be.
You're not afraid of failing?
I'm going to say failing. That's where I was leading to. Fear of failure. Is, I don't know that it's something that.
Well,
because to overcome a fear of failure,
you have to.
Like what I was going to say is, there's probably times that there are things that I don't do unconsciously because I don't want to fail, but I don't recognize it. So rather than taking a risk, putting myself out there to do something that's daring, or when you talk about
I'm not afraid of failing. Well, probably because I have failed at so many things, with my issues when I was a kid and stuff.
Right.
But I'm not afraid of failing because it's not failure. It's learning how to do it better. You're learning about all the little things you did wrong. So now that you're going to do this again, this time you'll get it right. Like you get opportunity after opportunity. And so I would rather do that and learn and get better and better than never do it at all.
Yeah, so there's so because I could look and say, for instance, when I was in high school and I got cut from the baseball team, that stung, from the varsity baseball team, and that was failure. And then
why'd they cut you?
Because I wasn't. They could only have so many players on the team. Mm-hmm. And
you weren't good enough.
It came down to me and someone else. And at that stage, earlier in life, I'd been an all-star when I was a little kid, but. No, I was not. It was interesting. Yeah, like.
I shouldn't have tangent off like that. I'm sorry, but I was just.
No, I was cut because the, I was. They to have 2 years of varsity. They wanted to give the kid that they'd have more time to work with for my senior year. Wanted to give the kid that a junior. That was coming. Sure. They had more time to develop him. And
but
so
you had been there the whole time, right? This was your school you grew up in.
It was my school. Yeah. But they only had limited. But still, I wasn't. By that point, I wasn't. I loved baseball. I wasn't great at it. I could talk about it. I could analyze it. I wasn't great at it. I was decent. Um, and so the thing that when I got cut, that was a failure. But then I was like, I'm okay. I'm fine.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
I've never seen you actually be upset about something. Like I've seen you be upset, but I've not seen you be upset like where I might have a bad day or I'm in a bad mood. Like I've never seen you, I mean, not ever have I ever seen you in a bad mood. Like you might be upset about something that's going on at that moment, but you've never been like, I'm just in a bad mood or I'm just tired or I've never ever seen you do that. Like I've never seen you have bad days.
well, I guess what
So I think you overcome really easy.
well, I mean, this is going to sound like it's just that they're the thoughts that I choose to hold on to. How am I going to approach this? Like, even I can tell you that when my dad died, that's a bad day.
But that's not what I meant.
But
just a
hold
bad
on,
day.
but that's a bad day. But on that day, I grieved, and I said, "Thank you, Lord, that I had my dad for 38 years." Because I knew friends who lost their dads in high school or in junior high, and I had that fear as a child of losing my parents, and so what I generally try to do is look for the good thing in the midst of the bad thing. So when I got cut from the baseball team, well, now those hours after school that I would have to devote to practice, that's free. I have that open now. And it's my senior year. I've only got a few months left of school. I can spend more time with some of my friends that I'm not going to see. So I would choose to find what's the silver lining in this? What's the good thing in this? And that's generally, I don't like, so here's the thing. I don't like to feel upset. I don't like the feeling of it. I don't like the feeling of negativity. And so I don't like to stay there. So I will opt to find the good thing to think about in the midst of whatever adversity
what
I'm
I do in
facing.
those moments, I don't find the good thing. Like I'm aware that this is a bad thing, but what I do is go, what do I do so that this doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
And so I problem solve that. So then that doesn't happen again. I think if you look at everything like glass half full and well, it's okay or whatever, not that like there's got to be a balance there, but I think you then don't learn
That can
from
be
the mistakes because you don't actually even acknowledge the mistake or the weakness or whatever.
that's
You just go, you know what, it's okay.
that's a potential downfall that's a potential downfall of not taking the time, not to let it beat you up, but to grow from it and to learn from it, and to not just be like, oh, la 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 la, that didn't happen.
Yeah,
like
right.
not do that, or to not meditate on it. So I generally don't.
But I think everything in this life is what are we supposed to learn from it? And so I think without adversity, without pain, without all those things, we just don't learn.
Yeah,
I know
that's-
you hate to be uncomfortable, you hate to be all those things, but like those things are actually gifts.
That's fine, but I'm saying they don't. But even to me, even if I approach it with that mindset, if I approach it with that mindset, okay, what can I learn from this? Right? That it's a mindset that says, I'm not going to let this defeat me. I'm not down. I'm not out. This is a growing point. This is one less way for me to fail. Kind of the Thomas Edison had to find so many ways to not make a light bulb in order to make a light bulb.
So I hear what you're saying, except I guess in my mind, I mean, I'm not trying to be critical. Like I'm looking at the other side of this going, okay, so that's like someone who's like broken their leg, but this is how I view it. Like if you broke your leg and you're like, you know what? It's okay because I've always wanted a limp. I've seen everybody else walk with limps. I think it's really neat. And you just try to keep walking on a broken leg or it's like in a cast. And so you just don't acknowledge that it needs healing or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know that's
Maybe that's not a good analogy.
I don't think that I don't think that the way I approached losing my dad.
No, not losing your dad, but that's not what I mean.
But saying like when I
so losing your dad is not something you could control. Like you lost your dad.
Well, we were talking about
Like overcoming.
about the thoughts that I choose to dwell on.
Right, I know. But I'm talking about, like, let's back up even more because yeah, that's a bad day. Your dad passed away, of course, but that's grief.
Yeah.
That's not like just going everything's fine. Like that's grief. That's different. I think it's a completely different
Sure.
thing. But if you got into a car accident and you were like, that's okay, I wanted to get a new car anyway, and you got the new car, but you never dealt with the reality of why did you get into a car accident? It might have been your fault. You might not want to do that again because you know what, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking I'm not saying it's like when I was a kid and in school I didn't do badly often, but when I did, then I would be like, okay, how do I not do this again? But I didn't let it defeat me. Like I wouldn't be like when I got, in the 7th grade I got a D, right? And so I wasn't like, oh now I'm a D student. I was like, okay, so what happened was I got overconfident in this class, and I didn't pay attention, and I wasn't taking notes because I just thought this is easy.
I'm brilliant.
It was an easy class that I got a D in, and I was like, okay, and so I made a plan to not do that again, and I didn't do that again. So that's generally the way, but yeah, no, I don't typically.
And by the way, I think I don't think anybody really likes being upset or feeling hurt or whatever. I think all of us dislike that. Because you were like, I don't like this. And I'm like, well, sure. I think we all
right.
feel
I imagine
that
not.
way.
So I'm usually trying to
Denial.
That's maybe. I'm usually going, okay. Well, I don't want to hang out in that.
I don't want to feel like this, so I'm just deciding to have a good time.
I'm gonna find. Yeah. I mean, I generally.
Yeah. The problem with people that do that, I think I envy it in a way. I think your mom was that way. I envy it in a way because I wish that I could be more that way. I think it leads to probably a happier life in the sense that, I'm just not going to carry this burden, or I don't want to feel that, you know what I mean? You're able to like kind of put it out of your head. The thing is though, is that when other people can't, you will become impatient with them because they're not able to do that. And if we don't grieve, like we're like, I'm not going to grieve. We don't actually allow for other people to grieve. So I think that it's important to,
I agree with that in terms of, I think when I was younger, like when we first got married, right? I mean, that's part of our, early story was I didn't really say, well, no, it's okay to have a bad day. Because
it didn't matter what it is. I was supposed to be happy.
just come on, let's just choose what you focus on. And I was like,
choose how to feel.
Yeah, I choose joy, kind of thing, and to a point where I didn't allow you to process things in the way that you needed to process them. And so, but I think as I've hopefully matured, that like though I approach things a certain way in my life, I try to be real sensitive to how. If someone else loses their parent or loses someone, when I'm dealing with people who are facing grief, I don't go, well, let me tell you how I handled it. You should just take this mindset. No, I'm with them in their grief in that. But I don't, but in terms of, no, look, there are attitudes and mindsets that come from a place of, like there are attitudes that lead fears that people have that lead them, it seems, to places of great success. They accomplish all of these things because they're afraid of this and they're afraid of that, and out of that they accomplish all this stuff, right? And I don't have that sense of fear in that regard. Like, well, what'll happen if all of these things. So anyway, yeah, that's I don't know.
I think
It's just kind of, I feel like it's sort of the way I'm wired a little bit.
right. But there, so what's there to overcome then? There's not a fear that you desire to overcome because you don't really have any fears as far as like those things go.
No, I think the thing.
I think that's what we're establishing.
Yeah, no. I think the thing that I come back and I look at is the.
Yeah, I honestly, like, I can hear you in my head. Like, I'm like, if I were to be like, you know, like, what if we were poor? You'd be like, well, that's okay. Then we'd be poor. We'd have each other. It'd be fine. Like that's the way you
because
right?
Right? Because Paul says, I've learned what it is to have a lot, and I've learned what it is to have little. I've learned the secret of contentment. I can do either of these things through Messiah who gives me strength. Like those circumstances don't rule.
As long as you don't
drive.
misunderstand contentment with apathy.
Correct.
Because that's an easy confusion where someone who is just going, well, it's all right. Well, I don't want to do that. Well,
Yeah,
it's okay.
where that
I'll
can
just
become-
ignore this or that. Then it becomes a problem because I don't think Paul meant you don't really need to strive for anything.
That's certainly not what he
Right?
meant. He doesn't. He's very much striving. I want to know him in the power of his resurrection, the fellowship of sharing in his sufferings. And you see a life driven, right? But it's not driven from a place of fear. It's not driven from a place of lack. It's not driven by a need for stuff or by the approval of man, right? So that the drive itself is only found in Yeshua. That's where...
Well, perfect love casts out fear.
Right.
So when we really understand God's love and receive God's love and have his love, it should cast out all fear. We know that what we're doing and that he loves us, he approves of us. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I don't need anyone else's approval because I know I am good with the Lord. Right. And I have his love, and his love is so filled in me. I'm not afraid. Right. It's okay. And I really do, honestly, in that regard, like I really do try. I'm not when there are people in my world that are really freaking out about, if it's politics or whatever. I mean, there are attributes of politics that I'm like, ugh, but I'm not worried. Like whatever, like the Lord is going to walk us through whatever he's going to walk us through. But I don't want what I walk through to be from the consequences of me not having paid attention.
Right.
Like whatever God brings my way, whatever life brings my way, okay, I'm going to deal with that and I'm going to learn from it and all that. But I want to make sure I learn from it.
Right. Yeah, I think and the question is, who are we being and who are we becoming? It's not even as much about the overflow of that can be what we're accomplishing. But I think the question is, who are we being? You can accomplish things, but there are people who accomplish a lot, but their character is, their interpersonal relationships are void and empty, and
I don't think a lot of those people realize that they're void and empty. I think the reason a lot of people get to where they're at, even financially, is because they like the feeling that they have in being who they are. Yeah. So they don't feel that emptiness, and that they don't have
depends
that
on
awareness.
what you value. I it's interesting. We just saw I saw an interesting quick little interview you and I were watching last night. We saw a thing where Matt Damon, the actor, was talking about how when he was 27 years old is when he and Ben Affleck won the Oscars, and they were these kind of new on the scene. And so the guy interviewing him said, did you feel like, were you going crazy that night?
Like,
and how was that amazing? Was it like, and he and the story that he told was, I thought I was so impressed actually by what he expressed. He said, I was at home and I'm alone at this point with this, looking at this trophy. And he goes, I'm so glad. And he used a different word. I'm so glad I didn't screw anyone over to get this. And he says, because there are people who live their whole lives driving for this thing.
Like, what if I had been
And
80
and I
years
was
old
80
and
years
this
old,
is all it
and then
is?
I got this, and I realized, because what he's expressing is, okay, I'm holding a trophy, but there's an emptiness to it. He said, if you think this is going to fill you, you're going to be disappointed. And he
Right.
realized, he's like, I'm glad I learned that lesson at 27
And not at
and
80.
get to 80 and go,
Had
wait,
spent
I
his
was
whole life striving.
after this, and this is all it was, and it was just emptiness. And if you can spend your life going after, driven to get this thing, and you hurt people along the way, or you mistreat people along the way, and the damage you do, and then you get this thing, and then you have to say, then you have to tell yourself, oh, it was all worth it. But the reality is, if you're honest with yourself, you look at these things, these trophies, these accomplishments, and you go, was this worth it?
Right. Was hurting all the people that I hurt to get here worth it?
People matter.
Right.
Loving people matters. And that's where not being...
Because the day after he got the Oscar, it was over. The movie was over. Like, we can all say, like, oh, yeah, they did Good Will Hunting. That's great. But that's not changing any lives. Right. So it was over. And most things are that way. Like, once you get it, you got it. It's done.
And the thing is, and not to be... this to me is not... It can sound like a depressing thought, but it's not a depressing thought. But it's an interesting thought that... someday, of course, we'll breathe our last. And we've all heard, that, all that will matter is what we did for the Lord, and relationally, the things that we did. And because what I know is this, is that I can't name, I can tell you the names perhaps of my great-grandparents even, but I can't tell you the names of their parents.
Right.
Within generations.
We're forgotten.
Within generation. Now, the impact we make, my name may be forgotten, but what I pour into my children, that they pour into their children,
right.
that they pour into their
children are our
that
legacy.
will carry on, and no one may know my name.
You know what, though? I think that's why it's so hard for parents because we feel like our children are our legacy, when our children go through really, really hard times or make mistakes, it feels very personal, like it's our failure, because if they're our legacy and they're not doing well, it also feels like it's our failure.
Right, but they're still in process, and part of what we've sown into them is all still in process, just like we've been in process.
And everybody, there is no growth. There is no growth without pain or adversity.
Right.
There just isn't. And we think that we want this life for our kids or for ourselves that is like perfect and pain-free and all that. Mm-hmm. But like I was listening to this guy talk yesterday, and he said, when you're going to work out, like, how does that muscle grow? It only grows from resistance. Right. It only grows from basically being torn.
If I don't feel the pain, nothing's happening.
Right, nothing's happening. And so we would be incredibly weak humans if we did not receive pain and adversity. So when our kids are going through these really terrible things, we have to trust that, God's with them like he was with us. And this is their journey for who he's designed and made them to be. And they can get there fast or they can get there slow. It's up to them.
And it really does, I think it really does, not just I think, I know this, that all that really does matter is the answer to the question, Lord, are you pleased with this, with me? So that if I don't, that's part of that's part of the secret, I guess, of contentment too, is to say, like, that I stand before him, you stand before him, and to really lay our lives before him, because we're bare before him. We're exposed before him. He sees us at the very depth of who we are, and he still loves us. And yet to say, okay, because I know that we're not all who we're supposed to be, yet we're all in process. But the question is, Lord, are you pleased with me? Because at the end of it, because he's the one that for all eternity, that we're going to be in his presence, and the impact that we make for him, that like when we live our lives trying to please the kids at the lunch table, that they forget about us 2 seconds later. Mm-hmm. It's all, what is that? And you find yourself going, why did I expend all of that energy and why did I surrender this and give this up for that? So at the end of the day, who won't forget is the Lord. Who will matter is what he says. And if we can learn to live with that perspective and on a daily basis, then we won't be driven by fear, but we will be driven by him and driven toward him. And if we're willing to listen to him, not because he's not the parent that's impossible to please. Like, am I good enough now, Lord? Am I good enough now? That's not how he reveals who he reveals himself to be.
And I think that when we ask those questions, am I good enough now? Then we're not actually aware of how much he loves us.
Right.
Because it's not about being good enough.
Right.
We're never, ever going to be good enough. Right. We're loved right where we're at.
I always think about this story.
We're going long.
Yeah.
We're like so far off.
This is sort of one of the core stories of my life. But it brings me back to one time I can see where I was at in the car with my dad, and he'd always ask me about how I did in school. So how'd you do? And I said, I got a 98 on my biology test, which biology wasn't my best subject. And he goes, why'd you get a 98? And I said, because I missed one, Dad. I missed one. He goes, and he goes, you should get 100. You should get 100. Now, what I knew in that moment, and if you knew my dad and I knew my dad, was that my dad was not saying 98's not good enough, son. My dad wasn't saying I don't love. You can do better. My dad wasn't saying I don't love you. Right. If you didn't get 100.
Right.
What my dad was saying is I love you.
You can do 100.
Right. I love you, son. I know what you're capable of, and so tell me what choices did you make? Why didn't you?
But you chose to think positive, which is great, and you were like, it's fine.
I did. I said. That's,
so you're like,
that's
I'm
true.
Gonna settle
but
for the 98, man. I'm just good with that.
Yes, I settled for I settled for the 98. But I was just like, but what I knew though was I had a father that was. But that being said, I did from the time I was a little boy, strive for excellence in academically.
Sure.
Because of what my dad taught me and because of how he challenged me. There's no doubt that was a driving force behind my thought processes academically, but I never once thought I'm not loved by my dad.
No.
And I think if we look at how the Lord calls us to be, to continue to grow into the fullness of the potential that he has for us, that we can do that and without living in the question of the insecurity of am I good enough for you? Do you he loved us enough to give up everything for us to pursue us. So anyway, okay, well I guess yes we have gone a little long.
And we just took a question and went all the way to Oz.
All over the place. Yeah. All right, well everybody, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. All right. Shalom, shalom. Have a beautiful day.